What is the magic trick?
That canister contains an extremely combustible substance called antimatter.
Antimatter. It's something that all of us have heard of in movies like Star Trek and Interstellar, but what exactly is it? Everything that we know is made from matter, like an apple or a dog. That matter is made up of the basic building blocks electrons, quarks, and neutrinos. But for every one of those particles, there is an equal and opposite antiparticle that has the same exact mass but different charges and spin. An electron has the charge of negative 1.602 times 10 to the negative 19 coulombs, whilst its counterpart, an anti-electron, or a positron, has a charge of positive 1.602 times 10 to the negative 19 coulombs. All these antiparticles can combine to make anti-atoms, and therefore make antimatter, which theoretically could make up anything that matter can, like an anti-apple or an anti-dog. So how are these antiparticles made? Well, one way to artificially make these antiparticles is with a particle accelerator. The collision of particles can release enough energy to produce pairs of a particle and its antiparticle counterpart. What you are watching now is a scene from Angels and Demons, which is showing off the inner workings of a particle accelerator. Here, the antimatter is being contained in these pods. Containment of antimatter is actually possible today, but unlike this movie where the antimatter is stored for well over 24 hours in this small container, scientists today have the ability to contain the substance for about 17 minutes using a combination of high-powered electric and magnetic fields. This is because if we were to store the antimatter in a regular matter vessel, something called annihilation would occur. To explain annihilation, let's look at a similar scenario. Say this stupid young man here is an electron, and his equally stupid counterpart here is a positron, each with opposing charges and spins. When the two come in contact with each other, they will annihilate one another. But as we know from conservation of energy, matter cannot be created nor destroyed, but here it is converted into energy, and a lot of it. This is why it's an intriguing substance for energy production in warfare. 1 kilogram of matter annihilating 1 kilogram of antimatter has the same amount of energy as the largest nuclear warhead ever detonated. The good thing for us is this is impossible to achieve at the moment due to our ability to produce only nanograms of antimatter that can only last for minutes at most. We can make antimatter, but what about existing antimatter in the universe? Researchers hypothesize that in the early times of the universe, there was a process called baryogenesis that produced both matter and antimatter. However, this process must have produced an imbalance of both, because otherwise all the matter and antimatter would have annihilated each other, and there would be no matter or antimatter in the present universe. It just so happened that matter was the more prominent substance and was left over after this annihilation. This imbalance is also known as baryon asymmetry. The reason for the asymmetry is one of the greatest mysteries in modern physics. So that's it, but we're going to leave you on an interesting fact. A banana produces a positron every 75 minutes due to the decay of potassium. Therefore, it would take 1 nonillion 100 octillion bananas to match the 1 kilogram explosive we talked about before. To put that in perspective, imagine lining bananas up from here to the moon. That would only be one length of the cube of bananas needed to produce 1 kilogram of antimatter in an instant.